Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at some of the things that I feel may be coming with Tom Clancy's Division 2, and these will probably be in future updates. So after we receive episode 3, we're going to be looking at what's coming next. I think the developers are going to start rolling out more information. Now, before we get started, I want to do some self-promotion. I have a second YouTube channel. It's called Video Game Fight School. I have a link in the description on the channel. Hit the subscribe button over there. It really helped me. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs. Also, I wrote a fiction book, so if you want a story to read, critique, or deal with, check the description below as well. I have the book on Amazon, and you can get yourself a copy if you wish. That'll really support the channel. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into the video. Now, if you look at Twitter, oh my, I really don't go on Twitter much just because I don't like the interface. I've never really known how to even use the platform. It's just been really weird. But it feels like that's the place where players are able to kind of give direct feedback to the developers and actually get some direct individual responses from time to time, maybe general responses. And if you want to kind of get a sense of what's going on, you're going to see that there is a vocal part of the community that has stayed on these devs on Twitter for a long time. A lot of them. You can look at, I think there's a content creator, Mr. So Serious Gaming. He is one of the very vocal critics of what the game is like. Sargrumps a lot. He's been a Division 1 player from time streamer, and there are a host of others that I can't mention right now. And so what we're seeing is a back and forth, which to me, I think that's actually a good thing. The game is not in a perfect state. The game is not terrible, don't get me wrong, but the game does not meet up to the quality of where Division 1 got to in 3 years. Now, many have said, but Division 1 in this stage was in a very bad place. How do we expect for Division 2 to be perfect off the bat? And I say to myself, Division 1 got perfect from 3 years of experience, or perfect, said perfect. Division 1 got to where it is with that quality in the space of 3 years. When they were making a second game, could the 3 years of experience, the 3 years of polish could not have been imported day one into the sequel? Because sequels usually are supposed to be better than the other game in many cases. They're supposed to, not all the time. In fact, what we've seen is sequels usually suffer sometimes in some games. But when developers understand their core and basic assets in terms of their major game, when they're bringing out a sequel, they are able to carry on those systems that players know and love, and bring them into the second part of the game and make the second part better by then adding everything extra, changes and all that. Those are done as layers and incremental movements. But in the case of the Division 2, it doesn't seem like that's the case in a large extent. So basic things in the Division 2, PvE content, running through missions, mission dynamics, those things are there. I'm not denying that those things are there. I'm just saying that there were other aspects of the game in terms of RNG, in terms of gear, that could have been done much better, because we stopped at pretty much perfect RNG in the Division 1. For them to start off the Division 2 with a very messy, limited, and extremely unrewarding RNG, just to me made no sense. If you want to hit the reset button, there are ways to do it. I think there are other creative ways that could have been done, but it seemed like they ignored all of that and brought to market things that were really strange to the community. Which leads me back to Twitter, where the communication has been going on. So Frederick Thylander did mention that for those who wanted the nitty gritty of things in the last state of the game, he did mention that he was going to be bringing the Thunder. So I'm going to title this thumbnail the Thunlander so that you guys can see that. And I think for him, it's more about bringing to table things that need to be discussed, because that's the community we are now. We've been in this developer community relationship as rough as it's been for going on 4 years right now. For those who don't really know the history of the division, you're new to the Division 2, so you might see our method of communication as complaining. Whatever you want to call it what you want. But it was this same kind of method, the same critique that we gave to the Division 1 that eventually ironed the game out to become a very polished experience. And what's I think more sad for those who might come into the Division 2 and see the way we are dealing with these things, you don't understand how good the Division 1 is. So your perception of a lot of the content creation and a lot of the feedback we're giving is just that we're whining, we're complaining. but I would implore you, take the time to go play the Division 1. It is actually a solid, stunning video game, which was in a very bad shape when it first came out. The community and the developers literally, with pain and prodding and pulling and maybe coding and designing, hammered that game into what it is right now. And we did so for years. And I guarantee even many of the people coming to the Division 2 did not play the Division 1 because they knew it was bad and they heard all the bad things about it. But those of us in the core community, we stuck it out. And so hopefully the changes that are happening are changes that are coming as a response to what the developers are listening to. Because I just went and read Frederick Thailander's, feed, his tweets and replies. And from what I could gain, players have been asking questions since that state of the game. And he's been responding, saying that there are changes coming and there are things actually coming after episode 3. He even mentioned something along the lines of just because they have not been announced doesn't mean that they're not coming. And so I think Massive wants to keep their policy of just not saying too much, but at the same time, I think that state of the game with Thailander bringing nitty-gritty aspects of the game to the table is at the level of the discussion that we are right now. There is no need to be holding back anything. This is not like a new community. This is a community that has actually gone to their studios across the world and actually shaken hands with them in terms of the ETF members, in terms of the star players. So I think we've crossed that border. This is not like some huge major company. I think Massive has decided, at risk of receiving a lot of critical feedback, they've decided to open their doors to the community members, as uncomfortable as that may be. I have to commend them for that. But at the same time, they kind of are the underdogs. Many of you may not know Ubisoft, compared to a lot of the AAA gaming companies that they're actually put in the same plate with, is actually like the underdog. They're kind of a smaller company compared to maybe EA and Activision. And so they need that community feedback, and they need to carry on that tradition to build their brand. So what we're doing here may seem like petty little gamer requests and petty little gamer whatever to some anyways, but it is much more critical for their own health and survival as a company that they are taking what actually works and putting it in a game and making polished games at the end of the day. Even though initially they don't, always drop their games in the strongest state, which is something they need to learn to do. I think that is that's their biggest area of growth. If you go read, maybe you go to Motley Fool and read a financial report. I was reading a financial stock report where they're assessing if people should buy Ubisoft shares. And the very first thing they open up with, this is a financial, magazine. The very first thing they said is, even though we know that Ubisoft is very, very, known for releasing their games without rushing their games to market in states that are usually buggy, something along the lines of that. If financial corporations know, and people who are trying to maybe invest in your company know that your games are buggy, it doesn't work to your benefit. If your games are polished right out the bat, financial investors can say this company looks very strong in their releases, and they can invest in you and they can grow in you. So sure, developer banter and community banter, we are all seeing it from this level. But on what is on the higher level? What is above that level? Somebody made a comment on my channel the other day. He said it is so painful watching grown men cry about a video game. And I said, man, it is so painful watching grown men have very little understanding as to the impact of what we are talking about on a much higher level. You're talking about a company that has like a $7 billion market valuation, bringing out broken products. And we're here giving feedback that will make them better. And somebody says that we're crying. It is a shallow perspective to see these things from just ordinary YouTube banter. Some of us don't just do YouTube because we just want to cry about a game. We are looking at things from a different direction and a different dimension. Maybe not other YouTubers, but the way I look at it from a very, very, very critical perspective of what the future of these companies look like. Because if these companies do well, and maybe we as gamers one day decide we're no longer playing games and we want to be investors, the very first place we're going to look towards investing is here in the gaming scene. And if they continue to behave like this, they'll crash their own market, and then we will take our investments elsewhere. So, you want to hold your horses, and we want to continue to keep the developers as accountable as we possibly can. Yes, some people are toxic. They're usually quickly identified. They're usually brought out. But in terms of giving, very level-headed feedback, we try our best to do so. I try my best to do so. And I do so because this is my perspective. So hopefully we're going to see some really cool stuff coming in the next few weeks. We're going to hear some more information. Hopefully, I hope it's not going to be really weird and vague. I hope it's going to be detailed and provide confidence. If your players don't have confidence in you, your investors will not have confidence in you. Investors know, they read, they see these things. That's how they actually, make their investments. Wise investors know where to put their money. And to be very honest, if they invest in a company like Ubisoft can grow and continue making good games, because we know at the core of Ubisoft's ideology, I do anyways, they love making good games. They love sticking with their games, and they love to push the boundaries. And yes, Ubisoft may have had its run-ins with a lot of people, but if a company like this can continue to grow and become better and provide better gaming value for players, then at a point we're not going to need greedy companies anymore. Ubisoft has enough IPs that they can polish up, they can do very well with, and to keep that ideology, they can start winning, and a lot of these other companies will either have to follow suit or die in obscurity. And so this is one of the reasons we do stuff like this. So let me get out of your hair right now. Thank you very much for your time and audience. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to subscribe and stay tuned for more Division content and gaming industry coverage, click the subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me hear your thoughts, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.